Hi everybody, Emma Murphy here, specialist psychotherapist and trainer in the area of emotional eating and binge eating disorder. And this series of videos is designed for health professionals who want to know more about working with clients with emotional eating and binge eating disorder, maybe be able to check their competency around working with these clients and have a better understanding of the complexities and the layers that can go with working with this client group. Now, in order to go through these lessons, I am going to be using a prop, which is the card deck that I developed a couple of years ago, The 4 Energies of Emotional Eating. You don't need to buy the card deck. In fact, you can download the free ebook that goes with the card deck as part of this series, and the link is down below in the description. But I'm just going to use them as a framework to help you understand all of the different themes and all of the different challenges that you as a professional might have working with clients with emotional eating and binge eating disorder. So without any further delay, let's get going. When it comes to working with clients with emotional eating and binge eating disorder, the very first and most critical thing to understand is that emotional eating and binge eating is a safety behaviour. So we cannot ask a client to give up emotional eating or binge eating straight away until we've built up a toolkit of other resources for them to be able to use instead of eating as a response to the threat they feel when they are stressed, distressed, upset, or trying to avoid conflict or some other form of negative event or emotion. So this card here is called Staying Safe, and if you read through the text that's on the screen here, you can see what we're communicating with the client, that their brain learned how to keep them safe by eating in response to stress or high cortisol. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay. Let's say you have a client who grew up in an alcoholic household, a household that was chaotic, dysfunctional, violent maybe, abusive, or there was something else going on that caused constant, stress levels to be elevated. Our child in that situation may have found it very difficult to ask their caregivers for the help or support or even explanations that they needed to understand what was going on. In the absence of being able to have somebody else soothe them and regulate them back down out of their stressed state, they learned how to self-soothe and self-regulate with food. So their body discovered that when they ate high fat, high salt, high sugar foods, that produced a dopamine response, which briefly counteracts the high cortisol or stress response that they are experiencing. Over time, this becomes internalized as a safety mechanism for the brain. It goes into an unconscious, internalized autopilot. So it is not within the client's conscious control to stop it. So this is one thing that's very important, I think, for a lot of health professionals to understand, that talking about willpower or talking about simple habit change or just do something different other than eating, that is not the place to start when you're dealing with a client who has long-standing emotional eating and binge eating disorder. This client is stuck in fight or flight. Their brain is stuck in that hypervigilance, where's the danger, where's the danger? And they need to be able to build up a toolkit of resources to help them come out of that hypervigilance, step down off the ledge, come down from the sentry position in their mind, and have other things that they can do to help reduce that level of cortisol in their body and reduce the level of stress that they're feeling. It's important to understand that we do not connect these two things straight away, that you're not asking the client to give up their emotional eating or binge eating at all in the early stages. What you are doing is helping them to understand what's going on in their body, understand what's going on in their mind, and when they are feeling stressed, to be able to acknowledge that, to feel it, and then to go and do something that helps them reduce that stress. But that's not to say to them, don't eat. You're just going to say, when you're feeling stressed, when you feel like you're up to 90, that's a phrase that I use a lot. That's an Irish phrase. I'm up to 90, I'm so stressed. So if the client imagines themselves being up to 90, how could they bring themselves back down maybe to 50 or 40 or 30? And what can they do about that? Okay, so let's move on and go deeper into this card and how we can work with the client around this particular topic. So the book that goes with the cards, The 4 Energies of Emotional Eating, is available as an ebook, and you can find a link to be able to download the full book for free in the description. So please feel free to do that, because you don't even have to buy the cards to be able to use this. By the way, you can just download the book and work away. You can see that card that we just looked at is here. That's the picture that's on the card. There's the description that's on the back of it. And then here you have the section that you use as your framework of what you're going to do with the clients, which is the deeper meaning. So how do we kind of dig into what I've just described it to you on the previous slide. You can actually use the book as your reference. But really what we're saying to the client is, you know, when your emotional eating goes back a long way, it's likely it started in response to a stress or a difficult situation. And when you're in fight or flight all of the time, it's in an autopilot. Your body's not focused on, you know, weight loss or anything like that. It's actually holding on to everything with everything it's got. It's in that hypervigilant fight or flight position. And then breaking out of a long-standing cycle of stress isn't easy when your body is running a set of autopilots like this. So we're covering everything that I have just explained to you in the previous slide. So here's where you can get this for yourself. And then on the other page of each card, you have you've got a couple of reflective questions, and then you've got actions that the clients can take. So the questions for this particular card are, am I addicted to stress? Do I constantly leave things to the last minute and or seem to have a lot of drama in my life? Now, this is really, really important with these clients, because you will find a lot of the clients who are coming into you will tell you, oh, you know, I missed a deadline. I had a really big project to do at work. You know, I was up all night studying. I was up all night writing my paper. I was up all night preparing for my presentation, you know, whatever it was. Or they're constantly in conflict or having drama with other people in their lives. They're fighting with their family. They're having run-ins with people in work. There's ongoing conflicts and dramas happening in this client's life. Now, what's really important to understand about this is not because your client is a difficult or argumentative person, although of course they are being a difficult or argumentative person if they're constantly creating drama in their lives. But if we go down the layers of this, what's important to understand is very often when somebody has been running cortisol for a long time, and our clients have often been running cortisol for decades, their adrenal glands actually get addicted to the cortisol or need the cortisol to actually prompt them to do anything. Like if we were able to completely drain all of that cortisol out of their body and have them down in a fully relaxed position, they actually would not know what to do with themselves. It would actually almost be a frightening experience for them. They would feel very helpless. They'd feel very threatened. They'd feel like they had no armor, no protection around them. So it's important to understand that sometimes these dramas are being manufactured because on some level the client's body has adapted to having that constant cortisol cascade, and it believes that it needs it in order to function. So I hope that makes sense. So what we're doing is trying to help the client slowly and incrementally reduce that cortisol cascade, prevent it from happening as often, bring them down, as I said, from 90 to 50 or 40 or 30. And in order to do that, you're going to actually give them a couple of suggestions of things that they can do. Now, the one thing that I always recommend for clients to do, and it's very popular with clients when they actually start doing it, they realize that it works, is just using Epsom salts, which are pretty cheap. And in fact, if they go into a pharmacy or sometimes even the vet has them, because they're also known as animal salts, and they're a lot cheaper actually when they're sold as animal salts than Epsom salts. But if they get Epsom salts and have an Epsom salts bath or even just a foot bath 3 times a week and be able to stay in the water or keep their feet in the water for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Epsom salts are full of magnesium, and magnesium helps us relax. It counteracts the effect of cortisol in the body, okay? Clients will often find that they sleep very well after having an Epsom salts bath or foot bath. The second action that I suggest here is to try an app like Insight Timer. It's free, but I do want to be careful or caution you around suggesting that the clients try meditation or mindfulness, because again, our clients, for them, this hypervigilance, fight or flight, is a safety mechanism. So if we try and take that away too soon, that again is going to panic them. And often clients will tell you they would rather crawl out of their skin than actually sit and meditate. So you need to be very careful about what you recommend for them to listen to. But it could be something like sleepy time stories at night before they go to bed, or it could be a guided visualization, or it could even be something like a progressive muscle relaxation, something like that, where they're actually listening to a voice and following instructions, really, if you like, or guidance, or just listening to a story, rather than actually trying to bring them straight into being mindful and noticing their thoughts and, you know, quietening their mind and emptying their mind. That is not something our clients want to do in the early stages. It's actually the worst thing they could think of is that their mind will be empty, because then God knows what will come into it, because often there's traumatic memories and events that they don't want to remember. So be very mindful about not introducing mindfulness and meditation too soon. and then just saying to them what else calms you down, do it more often. So what do they find relaxing? What works for them? What helps them de-stress? That can often be, you know, something like a creative activity or some kind of hobby or interest that they enjoy. And it's just for them to give themselves permission to do that more often, and that can be very helpful. So I hope you found that helpful today, and that's given you a little bit of an insight into what happens with our clients with emotional eating and binge eating disorder. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to get more of these videos. Hit the notification bell so that you know when I've uploaded a new video, and please feel free to download the ebook of the cards and book absolutely for free in the description below, and I'll see you on the next video. But for now, bye.